Hello. Today I would like to go over the very important principle in martial arts called isolation and exaggeration. Now, isolation and exaggeration is a concept, but it's also a principle that can be applied in very many different ways in the martial arts. And it's giving a lot of fighters the cutting edge, and it's teaching you how to weaponize a lot of your traditional material. It's really great stuff. Really great stuff. So let's talk about it. Let's go over and let's see how it can be applied to your martial art today. Okay. First and foremost, let's talk about combat sequences. Now, in traditional martial arts, when you go over the drills, there might be 5 or 6 combat sequences. Right? So I might hit, and then I follow up with all these moves. It doesn't necessarily mean, think of it just like in kickboxing. I might have an 8-hit combo. Doesn't mean I'm going to get all 8. As a matter of fact, you most likely will not. You might get the first 3 or 4, and hey, if you get all 8, perfect. Now, same thing with traditional martial arts. When you watch like some of the Wing Chun trapping, or when you watch the Filipino martial arts, or when you watch some of the combat sequences in Pencak Silat and other fighting systems, you're going to see about 8 or 9 combos. If they do this, I do this. If I do this, they do this. Now, understand something. What this is teaching you is muscle memory, but it's also teaching you about martial pathways, okay? Stay with me. I'm talking about isolation and exaggeration. Now I'm talking about martial pathways. Pay attention. Martial pathways are what these sequences are doing. They're teaching you how to strike and go low. They're teaching you how to strike and go high. They're teaching you to take the center. They're teaching you how to take the outside. They're teaching you how to do the legs. They're teaching you how to go inside, outside, forward, low, high. So these are combat sequences giving you tools on how to apply and use your combative fighting art. So your martial pathways are, I can go high up, high inside. I can go high outside. I can go high. I can go inside low. I can go inside to a takedown. I can use my lower art. So these martial pathways are ways of movement, sequences of movement on how to move and operate combatively. Now, what is isolation, exaggeration, and how does it apply to martial pathways? Number one, if you're not taught martial pathways, if you're not taught these combative sequences, I don't care if it's Muay Thai or whatever art you're learning, you got to learn a martial art. You got to learn martial pathways. Now that you know how to move, I'm going to tell you right now, don't expect those movements to always work that way in a fight. Matter of fact, they're not. Pieces of what you do will work. Pieces of what you do. We all know that fights are situational. Every fight is different. Even if you're sparring, you're going to have different types of fighters. Not everything is going to work 100% of the time. It just doesn't work that way. But pieces will work. You're going to start discovering on certain fighters, different pieces will work, right? You have different strategies, different pieces. So let's focus now. You have your martial pathways, which is your ways to move combatively. Now, isolate and exaggerate. Let's say that I have an eight hit combination or an 8-hit sequence where I block, hit, trap, hit, snake, right? Or figure jab, buji, figure jab, right? Now, if I block and I hit, once I get the reaction, once their head goes back, once I get this reaction, I don't need to worry about flying all the way over. I'm going to isolate that reaction and I'm going to exaggerate on it. Now, what is the exaggeration? The exaggeration portion means I'm going to let my techniques fly, right? So I'm going to, let's say somebody throws a cross. I bob and I hit. Now that I see this reaction, I'm going to isolate and exaggerate. Boom, 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 hit, right? So I block and I hit. Now that I get that, I'm going to focus. Now, if I'm throwing that cross and they block it or they bob it, now my combat sequences have taught me to move to the other side. Now that I'm on the other side, again, I'm going to isolate, boom, 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 and exaggerate. So isolation and exaggeration turns your combat sequences into a weapon. Okay, so you're not just doing this now. That doesn't work. But it does teach you pathways of movement. So now, let's say I get this part. Focus on that part. You get the hit. Boom, 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 boom. Focus on that part. Turn that into a weapon. Now, once again, they block, they parry, they move. You know you have a combat sequence for that move. So this is working and this is working. You put them together and now you got this amazing combat sequence, but it comes from isolation and weaponization. So take your combat sequences, like take your Wing Chun trapping, take whatever system is that you're practicing. If you get a hit, if you get that strike, focus on it and zero in on it and turn it into a weapon, okay? And then if it's countered or moved, you can use the rest of your sequence to follow it up. But don't think that your sequence is going to be the way that it's going to happen in a fight. Isolate and exaggerate. This is how you take a lot of traditional material and turn it into a combative weapon. This is how it's done. Now, isolation and exaggeration can also be used. It can also be used as a teacher's aid and in learning or isolating a technique. So, for example, let's say we're just working on a sidekick, something simple, sidekick, right? So, like your camera phone has bursts. It has bursts where you can take like 12 shots, 20 shots, 8 shots, whatever it may be. So those bursts are like little sequences of movement. Now you got to lift up your leg. You have to isolate the position correctly, and then you deliver your power. If you're delivering your power, if you have not isolated the movement and doing it correctly, you're not going to get the result you want. So you have to isolate what the technique is and exaggerate on the movement. And you could do that by focusing on each snapshot. So you could figure out what's going wrong with the technique, or you could figure out what's going right with the technique. You could isolate on it and exaggerate on it. I've done entire lesson plans. As a teacher, I've done entire lesson plans on just a sidekick. Look, I could do the sidekick on the ground. I could do the sidekick standing up. You could do the sidekick on issuing a certain amount of power. You could chamber your leg and you could turn that sidekick into a front kick or a round kick or an axe kick. So there's all these ideas that can come from one thing. One thing. So just like I was talking about weaponization, you can take a series of 8 movements, and if I get an attack on the second beat of those 8 movements, I'm going to focus on that second beat. If I get an attack or a strike on the 5th beat, I'm going to isolate and exaggerate on that 5th beat, and I'm going to inject combative strikes and elbows to just take them down. Same thing. When I'm learning something, I can isolate on it and exaggerate on it until I get it 100% correct. Same thing with the lesson plan. As a teacher, I can take just a sidekick. I can say, this is my goal today. My goal as a teacher is I have sidekicks, and that's what I'm using to hunt the lion today. This is what I'm using for my whole class. Can't use all my other stuff, just using this. I'm going to isolate what we're doing. I'm going to make sure the kicks are right. I'm going to show you how to do it on the ground. I'm going to show you how to do it standing up. I'm going to show you how to do it on a heavy bag. I'm going to show you how to do it against a partner. I'm going to show you against different size opponents. I'm going to show you how to use different types of power. I'm going to show you how to move while doing a sidekick. And then you have all your different sparring partners. So with all of this being said, isolation and exaggeration can be used as a teaching aid. It can be used to, like I was giving the example of those short bursts, it can be used to teach how to fight or teach a movement correctly, what is right and what is wrong with it. And it, most importantly, from my standpoint, is it shows you how to weaponize traditional material. Think of it like beats. You have 8 beats to a movement. If I get a hit on the second beat, I'm going to isolate, boom, 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 and exaggerate on that movement. Exaggerate on it. And then let's say something happens, and on the 5th beat, I know that martial pathway to move to the next area. Focus and isolate on that. So this principle, this concept can be injected into your martial art. It can be injected into what you're studying, and it is a wonderful teaching aid, and a lot of fighters are doing it, and a lot of teachers are doing it. I wanted to share with everybody today. Isolation and exaggeration. Thanks for watching.